Let's talk about something that might hurt, but you need it. They've lied to you. They made you believe that what you feel is love, when it's really fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being enough. Fear of not being seen, not being chosen, not being worthy. You tell yourself it's love, but ask yourself this: if they disappeared tomorrow, would you still feel whole? Or would you collapse like a house built on someone else's foundation, never yours? That ache in your stomach when they don't reply, that silent panic, that obsession with checking if they're online. That's not love. It's anxiety. It's emotional dependency dressed up as devotion. It's not affection. It's attachment. It's addiction to a feeling you don't know how to create on your own. It calms a hunger you've been too afraid to name. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two souls is like the contact between two chemicals. If there's a reaction, both are transformed." But you're not transforming. You're vanishing. You're shrinking to fit someone else's needs, bending yourself just enough not to be abandoned, and calling that love. That's not love. That's survival. It's fear of not existing unless someone sees you. But your worth isn't found in anyone else's gaze. It's found in how you stand when no one is clapping. It's how you speak when no one is listening. Attachment says, "I need you to breathe." Love says, "I'm already breathing, and I choose you." And until you understand that difference, you'll keep mistaking cages for care. You'll keep calling chains commitment. Jung understood this. What we don't heal inside, we project onto others. We reach outward, hoping someone else will stitch up what we haven't even dared to look at. And in that reaching, we lose ourselves. Not because they took us, but because we never knew who we were to begin with. We feed on their presence just to avoid facing our absence. But there comes a point, a break in the silence, where you finally hit bottom, where you realize that what you called love isn't saving you, it's drowning you. And that's where detachment begins. Not as coldness, not as emotional retreat, but as radical self-respect. Letting go isn't the opposite of love. It's how love matures. It's not about needing less. It's about fearing less. It's saying, "I want you in my life, but not at the cost of myself." Because real love doesn't ask you to shrink. It doesn't thrive in fear. It doesn't require a mask. It invites you to be more of who you are, not less. It encourages your growth, not your silence. Detachment is an inner revolution, a quiet declaration that says, "I no longer beg for what I already deserve." It's looking into the emptiness without panic, sitting with the silence without running, standing alone and still feeling whole. And yes, it hurts. It hurts because for years, you believed they were oxygen, that without them, you'd collapse. But that pain is the doorway. Once you pass through it, everything shifts. Not because the world changes, but because you stop seeing through the eyes of lack and start living from fullness. Letting go isn't closing your heart. It's opening it without condition. It's choosing to love without grasping. It's whispering, "I love you, but I don't need you to breathe." And that is the highest form of love there is, because it's not built on desperation, it's built on freedom. Jung called it individuation, the path back to your center, a homecoming to yourself. When you arrive there, you no longer disappear in relationships. You don't collapse in absence. You don't beg for mirrors, because the reflection you once needed now lives within. Because once you stop looking outward for what already lives inside, the world changes. You stop begging for love. You stop settling for scraps. You stop holding on to people who don't know how to stay. You stop losing yourself in someone else's absence. Now you have yourself, and that's the most powerful thing you'll ever hold. But it takes courage, because attachment feels safe. It's painful, but familiar. Detachment throws you into the unknown. It strips your excuses. It makes you sit in front of your shadows without anyone to distract you. And that's why most people run. They'd rather stay imprisoned in comfort than taste the void of liberation. But do you know what lives on the other side of that void? Peace. A peace not dependent on presence. A quiet that doesn't fear silence. A love that begins inside and spills outward, not the other way around. And suddenly, you understand. Letting go is not losing. It's returning. Returning to yourself, to your roots, to your rhythm. Because real love doesn't ask you to abandon your wholeness. It asks you to meet someone there. To offer, not from need, but from fullness. And when you reach that state, something profound begins to shift. Your emotional frequency rises, and the people you attract change. You no longer pull those who want to fix or be fixed. You start calling in those who've done the work, who don't need your healing, but honor your growth. And yes, many will leave. Many won't know how to love a free soul. Many will feel threatened by your self-reliance, but that's not your burden. Your only responsibility is this: to stop asking others to hold pieces of you you've never dared to carry yourself. If you're steady, you're safe. If they drift, you collapse. You stop being a person, you become their shadow. Not a self, but a reflection. A nervous echo waiting for a signal. And the moment you become that echo, something inside you begins to fade. You start living with a chronic ache, disguised as love. Every choice, every word, every silence becomes a test, a trap, a threat. Because your emotional balance no longer comes from within. It depends entirely on someone else. And that's dangerous, because no one, not even those who love you, can carry your inner world for you. This is where something rarely discussed begins to appear: relational neurosis. It's the cycle of love turned into obsession, of longing masked as devotion. It's a loop you don't even see, because the script lives in your subconscious. Jung understood this. What we do not make conscious returns as fate. That's why you keep choosing the same kind of love. New faces, same wound. You keep playing the same part, giving everything just to be chosen, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. And under that pain, there's something darker: idealization. You don't see the person. You see a projection. You place them on a pedestal and make yourself small to keep them there. And that breaks the balance, because love needs equality. And once you diminish yourself, it stops being love. It becomes emotional servitude. So, what's the exit? You go inward, to the place where your loneliness hides. Because if you can't be with yourself, you'll always demand someone else to do it for you. And when they can't, you'll collapse. Not because they failed, but because you were never home inside yourself. Because when you depend on someone else to feel whole, you're never truly with them. You're clinging to a mirror. And what happens when the mirror breaks? You disappear. You stop existing as yourself. You become a version edited for survival. You twist your words. You silence your needs. You shape-shift to avoid rejection. And what's most tragic? Most of the time, they never asked you to. You did it from fear. That old, quiet terror of not being enough unless you become what someone else wants. And here, we meet the shadow. Jung knew this well. The shadow is not darkness. It's the parts of you you've learned to hide to feel safe. The pieces you buried because they were too much. But they never left. They just learned to whisper from behind your smile. When you build a relationship from your mask instead of your truth, what you're really doing is negotiating your worth. You present a version of yourself that's digestible, polished, accepted, but it's not real. And the more you love from that place, the more you disintegrate. Because emotional dependency doesn't just bind you to the other, it pulls you away from yourself. You lose your center, your voice, your compass. You stop hearing your own intuition. You start living for how they look at you, instead of how you see yourself. You confuse tension with passion, chaos with connection, intensity with authenticity. And you stay. Not because you're happy, but because your nervous system thinks chaos is home. And this is the turning point. When you realize that staying in that pattern is not love, it's survival. It's fear in disguise. And fear doesn't build, it consumes. You say just a little longer, but that little turns into years. And one day, you wake up and realize your most precious time was spent waiting for someone to become what they never promised to be. That's the cruelty of attachment. It steals your present by selling you a future that never arrives. But it gets deeper, because attachment has another face, one harder to see. It turns you into a drama addict. Yes, that's right. Some people feel empty in peace. They've lived so long in emotional turbulence that calm feels boring. Safety feels fake. Chaos becomes the measure of love. If there's no arguing, no breakdowns, no makeup cries, something must be wrong. That's the trap. Emotional chaos floods your system with adrenaline, and like any high, it hooks you. But it doesn't heal you. It wears you down. Ever noticed how you push away those who love you gently? Those who offer presence without demand? Why? Because your system only knows how to pay for love with pain. Because peace feels unfamiliar. That, too, is attachment, an addiction to what breaks you, simply because it's familiar. So how do you break it? First, awareness. Stop justifying what hurts. Stop romanticizing what shrinks you. No, pain is not love. No, suffering does not prove depth. No, love should not cost you your mental health. Second, stop looking outward. Stop waiting for them to change, to see you, to choose you. Start seeing yourself, because the love you beg for is the love you've been withholding from within. And here comes the forgotten concept: self-affirmation. The ability to say, "This is who I am. This is what I feel. This is what I need. This is what I won't tolerate." And to stand by it, even if it costs you the relationship. Because losing someone who can't love you as you are is not a loss. It's a doorway. And now, let's take it deeper. What if love wasn't something you chase, but something that arrives once you return to yourself? What if your greatest relationship isn't with another, but with your own integration? Because when you're aligned inside, nothing from the outside can destabilize you. People don't complete you. They join you. And if they leave, it might hurt, but it doesn't destroy you. Because you are already whole. Jung described the self as the center of your deepest identity, the place untouched by noise, untouched by approval. When you live from that place, love becomes freedom. Not validation, not proof, not rescue. And from that freedom, every connection becomes cleaner, lighter, truer. Not because it's perfect, but because it no longer grows from desperation. It grows from presence. But reaching that place isn't easy. It's a desert. The desert of detachment. A space where you sit in silence and realize this wasn't love. It was fear in disguise. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can't keep calling chaos romance. You can't keep sacrificing your peace for proximity. You've woken up. And yes, awakening costs you things. It may cost you people. It may cost you illusions. But what it gives you is yourself. That's when it becomes sacred. Because you understand, letting go isn't apathy. It's healing. It's not distance, it's clarity. It's being able to say, I love you, but not at the expense of my wholeness. And something powerful happens when you reach that threshold. Your emotional field shifts. You stop attracting people who want to fix or be fixed. You begin to draw those who meet you as equals. Not to complete, not to fill a hole, but to share the view. And yes, many won't stay. Many won't know how to love someone who doesn't need them. But that's not your responsibility. Your only job is to stop betraying yourself to feel temporarily held. Because when you stop needing someone to hold you together, something inside quietly clicks into place. You stop begging for love. You stop shrinking to be kept. You start choosing. You start standing. You start remembering who you were before they forgot. But that takes courage, because letting go isn't sterile. It's sacred. It's not indifference. It's deep respect. It's looking someone in the eye and saying, I love you, but not if it means abandoning myself. It's walking away, not because you stopped loving, but because you finally started. And when you cross that threshold, your frequency changes. You begin to attract differently. People who don't want to possess you, but walk beside you. People who don't need your wounds to feel useful, but celebrate your wholeness. Because now you're no longer vibrating from emptiness, you're radiating from truth. And here comes the most difficult and the most beautiful truth of all. Many will leave. Many won't know how to love someone who doesn't need to be rescued. Many will be unsettled by your independence, because they were taught to be oxygen. And when they see you breathing on your own, they feel unnecessary. But that is not your burden. Your work is not to make others comfortable with your healing. Your work is to stay loyal to your peace. This is the real transformation. When you stop begging for love and start becoming it. When you no longer wait for someone to hold you because you've learned to hold yourself. When silence is no longer a threat, but a temple. When you finally realize your worth was never in how they looked at you, but in how you see yourself when no one's watching. And yes, there will be days when you stumble, when old patterns knock at the door. Because healing is not linear. It's layered. It's human. But every time you choose your inner stillness over external chaos, you're rewiring the story. You're no longer repeating the wound. You're writing from the scar. And now, let's go deeper than we've gone before. Let's touch the center of it all. What if love is not a destination but a byproduct? What if the real journey is not to find someone, but to return to yourself, whole? Because once you're rooted in yourself, the world changes shape. You no longer ask to be completed. You ask to be witnessed. You no longer seek rescue. You offer presence. The people who enter your life stop being your crutch. They become your companions. And if they leave, it might ache, yes, but it won't break you, because nothing outside of you holds your center anymore. Jung called this the self, the deepest nucleus of who you are, unmoved by the noise, unshaken by absence. When you live from this place, you stop performing. You stop begging. You stop betraying yourself just to be kept. And here comes the hardest lesson. Not everyone you love will be able to love you back. Not because they're broken, Not because you failed, but because they are not meant to walk beside the version of you that finally knows their worth. And letting them go is not a tragedy. It's an act of sacred clarity. Because real love doesn't chain. It doesn't demand sacrifice. It doesn't dim your light just to keep you close. It holds. It mirrors. It honors. But to get there, you have to pass through the fire. You'll grieve the illusion. You'll miss the chaos. You'll feel the phantom weight of someone who was never really holding you. And that grief will feel like death. But maybe it's supposed to. Maybe it's the fever before the healing. Maybe it's your soul purging everything that kept you small. Because yes, detachment burns. But what comes after is clarity. A clarity so pure it silences your mind. A peace so deep it doesn't need to be explained. Because here's the truth few will tell you. Being alone is not the same as being empty. Loneliness is a condition. Emptiness is a wound. And when you heal that wound, solitude becomes a sanctuary. A place where you finally hear yourself without interruption. Where your voice is no longer drowned out by others' needs. Where your worth is not up for debate. So now, I want to ask you one thing. Not for me, for you. Are you ready to choose yourself? Because if you are, then leave a single comment. Write it with intention, not for attention. Just write, I come home to myself. Let that be your anchor. Let that be your quiet revolution. Because healing doesn't always make noise. Sometimes it sounds like silence. And if this message found something inside you that was asleep, then come back. Not for content, not for motivation, but for reflection, for truth, for self-return. Subscribe only if you're ready to stop consuming and start becoming. And remember, you don't need more love from others. You need less abandonment from yourself. We'll meet again, in the space between stimulus and choice, in the breath you take before betraying yourself again, in the moment you pause and choose peace instead. We'll meet in the silence.